let's continue.
Yes, indeed.
Where we left off, sacredness. You spoke about divine creation. Yes. How much sacredness is divine creation, and how much is our own meaning giving to it?
Interesting. I think that, in fact, the word creator needs to be understood in the sense that I think that the spirit, the soul, is eternal, nature is eternal, and the divine is eternal. So we are talking about no beginning and no ending. And so I think that at a time when things become very dark, this is when the Creator intervenes to give the human soul the light of understanding and the light of love and the light of purity so that we can bring about change. Then it's each one of us individually who will actually then become the creator of what's going on in our own inner world, and also then the creator of the world around us. And what happens is that as that light enters the soul and that light enters the world, I think that we're able to move away from that darkness and enter a new era a day. So I believe that what's ahead of us is the dawn, the day.
You seem to talk about becoming one. So oneness is the core essence of sacredness. Different.
The feeling of oneness is sacred, but being at one with myself is getting everything aligned. My thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my conscience, my habits. So when that is aligned, yes, that is sacred. And when I feel at one with the divine, that is sacred. Why I hesitate in use of this word oneness is that it's not that everything becomes the same. Each one retains a unique, distinct identity. And so the Supreme is also a unique personality. Each one of us is also unique and individual, but the oneness is in terms of the sense that we get of the presence of each other. I hope that's not too complicated.
Let's go back to the sacredness. So I think many of us are caretakers. Can I ask, may I ask, who's the professional caretakers? มีใครที่ทำอาชีพเป็นผู้ให้การดูแลครับโดยอาชีพไหมครับอาจจะหมายถึงว่าคนที่เป็นทั้งบุคลากรในระบบสุขภาพหรือว่าจะเป็น NGO ที่ทำงานเกี่ยวกับเรื่องการดูแลอะไรเงี้ยก็ได้เยอะไหมครับโอเคครับขอบคุณครับ So making our workplace sacred is an important part of spirit of care.
Absolutely. Why? Because a higher consciousness is not just for when I'm sitting in meditation, but a higher consciousness means at all times. So that if I treat my work as something sacred, which it is, it's not just a method of earning money, but if I treat it as something sacred, then I'm going to fill it with a different energy, and the results are going to be different, and the place of work is going to carry a different experience and a different vibration. And especially for those who are carers, it's a sacred duty. It's not just working from 9 to 5, and it's not just working with papers, it's working with people, working with human beings. connecting with them on a deeper level, seeing them as spirit. And the care that I give in that consciousness is going to be of a different quality.
So, and is it, we can have, and may I ask, the spirit of care and spiritual care, are they different?
A little bit, because the spirit of care can take in everything, in which I'm taking care of an old person, and the spirit of care means that then whatever are their physical needs, washing them, cleaning them, helping them, many things. And spiritual care, yes, all of that can be filled with spirituality, but more than that, spiritual care is when I see that a person needs spiritual support and understanding. And that for me means understanding spirituality very deeply myself, so that then I can understand their situation and help them, giving them light in their particular situation. Say, for example, here's somebody who's going through a financial problem. I can't give them money, but I can give them spiritual care. I can help them stay up above and look at the situation from a different perspective and ask them the question, well, what is this situation teaching me? And when I begin to learn the lessons of that situation, probably the situation can change. Life is a very good teacher, and human teachers get tired and impatient, and they'll teach you once, twice, and then say, she's not learning, leave her. But life will keep teaching you the same lesson again and again and again and again until you've learned the lesson. And so spiritual care means helping somebody look at things from a spiritual perspective, so that then they learn the lessons that they need to in that.
So, similarly to professional care that one has to learn how to do, the spiritual care one has to learn to do that as well.
I believe so. I think that the more I study spiritual knowledge and practice those teachings, and also I've been very lucky that I had 40 years in which I spent time with the lady who's the head of the organization now. When she was in London, I shared a room with her for most of that time, and so every step along the way I was learning from the way she handled situations and helped people. And being a translator for her, she spoke Hindi, and so I was having to translate from Hindi into English, and I had insights that I could never have had otherwise. So yes, it's a process of learning.
How can we ordinary people do that, since we don't have the opportunity to share a room with you or be a translator for you for such a long period of time?
Focus on spiritual study. That was my first point. The more I am open to learning spiritually, the more I can understand how to help care for others spiritually. So yes, the path is open for everyone.
Or visit the Ban Pintu more often, right? And be surround yourself with like-minded people or spiritually like this people.
Correct. Absolutely.
And you mentioned meditation several times. Could you please share with us how is it connected, meditation and spirit of care?
If I'm caring for myself, then I need to be able to recharge my battery. Otherwise, especially in a caring profession, not just those who are professional carers, but maybe in medicine, any health issues, maybe in education, teaching, maybe in social work. In these sort of caring professions, you have to give a lot and you become empty. And certainly in England, healthcare and education, these are the two areas in which there's maximum stress for the professionals and also burnout. And the highest rate of suicide is women doctors. So that speaks for itself, which means that if I'm going to continue to give, I need to find a way of recharging. And for me, the only way to really recharge the inner battery is through meditation. And my definition of meditation is focusing the mind on aspects of eternal truth, which means focusing my thoughts on the inner being, the original qualities of the inner being, and I believe that there is a divine, and focusing on the divine, my relationship with the Supreme, and the qualities of the Supreme. This is meditation in which my thoughts are connecting with the Supreme, and in that case I'm drawing that light, that love, that power within myself. And so if a carer begins the day caring for the self with the recharging of the battery, then they're going to be effective in their work. Otherwise, nowadays they speak about compassion fatigue, where there's been a lot of giving out of love and compassion, but now I'm exhausted. There's fatigue that's set in, and I feel I can't give anymore.
So, relating to divine being, supreme being, is it possible to meditate, to recharge, or to provide care with spirit, being an atheist?
Yes, there are people who are atheists who learn to meditate, and very definitely you can just focus inside, connect with the being and the inner qualities of the being. And probably as you continue to do that, in many cases I've seen that atheists actually then begin to understand, they begin to feel the presence of the divine.
And without having to name the same thing.
Correct.
And experience the same thing.
Yes, you can, definitely.
That's wonderful.
Without a label.
And for the compassion fatigue, any suggestion for people who already experience it?
Make time for yourself. If I don't bring in the divine, that's also fine. But I need to connect deeply with myself. That also is a powerful method of renewing myself, awakening my own inner energy. And that will help me deal with the exhaustion that I'm feeling.
We talked earlier about sacredness of workspace and home. What about people who are able to give spirit of care in the workplace, especially in the public health setting, but don't seem to be able to do similar thing at home?
You see, at work, there's a position I have. And so people walk in and they see me with that position. At home, I'm family. I have no position. And so I need a lot of humility and a lot of love in which I'm able to give my family what it is they're looking for from me, but without a position. Here's somebody who's a boss who comes home and he expects his children to treat him as if he's still the boss. And the children will say, but you're my father, you're not my boss. And so it's a little bit that idea that whatever is the position I hold at work, I leave it behind there and I step into my home in a different role. And I position my mind in that relationship in which now I'm giving in a different way. I'm still giving, but differently. I don't hold on to the hat. And that's a little bit getting rid of the ego. It doesn't automatically get rid of everything, but a little bit of the ego goes with the hat.
And for both places, it always starts from inside.
I was just thinking as I finished speaking that in fact what happens is that a person comes home and then they expect that they're going to receive. They forget that their family also wants something from them. And so yes, it has to start inside. That I care for myself, whatever is my profession, but I care for myself and I recharge my inner battery daily, every single day. And in fact, I'm going to add one more thing. It's not even a daily exercise. It's something that, say for example, you give water to the body. How many times a day? 4 times? 5 times? 8 times? However many. But you take that pause and you refresh the body. And if you don't, you're going to be very exhausted, and by the end of the day, you're getting quite irritable. You're not a nice person. So you learn, I have to take care, and you learn to drink water. In the same way, as you're hydrating the body, give power to the soul. Because you can't speak at that time when you're drinking water, but you can think. And so think about the awareness of the self, the inner being.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We talk a lot.
There's a question from one of the audiences, and just from reading it, I see how love-filled it is. It's filled with love. How to use? What's the easy way to apply spirit of care in this case? In this particular case, his daughter has diagnosed with bipolar, and right now taking medicine. What would be a way to deliver spirit of care?
It's a difficult situation, but I know that treating a person with respect and dignity and love, and not holding that label in your mind. Sometimes what happens with diagnosis, especially in mental health cases, we carry that label for another person and we're seeing them with that vision. No, they're that being of light, filled with goodness. And yes, at this moment, the brain is having trouble, but loving that individual, giving them respect, and helping them take their medication. Sometimes people in that condition avoid their medication, but medication is not a bad thing. It helps bring balance. And so whatever is the medication, help the daughter understand that that's also very important and useful. And it's not lessening of dignity to take medication. So creating that atmosphere of care and support will help her. One more thing, and encourage her in her life, whether it's education or career. Don't think that because of this there's going to be a problem. No. It's very possible that if she finds something that she's really interested in, it won't create that problem.
How do people who provide care have a good quality care for people who, from their perspective, might be deserving the pain that they have, like they create their own problems, like drunk drivers or troublemakers.
When there's compassion, then it leads to a quality of a merciful heart in which I see the weakness of the individual, but rather than allowing that to impact me, I give them kindness and love, so that then I'm actually helping them deal with their weakness. And so here's somebody who's in a position in which maybe because of their own drunken driving, they've had a severe accident. If I see them with distaste, I can't help them. It's not going to be useful. But when I see that this is a good human being, but yes, under the influence of whatever, this happened, but now, in this moment, this person needs a lot of love, because their own guilt is probably causing them a lot of disturbance anyway. But if I can give them pure love, spiritual love, and help them, they'll be able to reform. Next time it won't be like that.
And how can we cultivate compassion, kindness in our heart?
In meditation, I'm aware of how much support I've had from everyone along my journey, in different ways, different things, and I realize how much compassion has been shown to me. When I recognize that and I'm filled with that gratitude, then I know that this is something I would like to offer others also. So that appreciation and gratitude that I couldn't be here if it wasn't for everything I had received already, then I'm able to give. And I think there's also an element of forgiveness that I have to cultivate. While I'm holding feelings of bitterness in my heart, then the bitterness doesn't allow me to have compassion. So the process of meditation is also the process of cleaning. And so in that cleansing process, I know that in forgiveness, there's freedom for me. I'm not doing another person a favor, but I am letting myself become free. And as I let go of sorrow and bitterness, and my heart is more clean, then compassion can come, mercy can come.
Since meditation seems to be core practice of in your belief, could you please explain a little bit more? Since, as in Thailand, it has developed kind of bad reputation, especially when directed in formal classroom setting. A lot of students or even adults sit with guilt because they are either feeling drowsy and sleepy or very absent-minded, lost in their long, huge trains of thoughts. What would be your advice on that?
I would say, learn to meditate. There's obviously a formula that one can learn. And if I learn that formula and start using that formula, then I'll start getting real benefit from the meditation. Meditation isn't just letting my mind go blank. Meditation isn't falling asleep. That's not meditation. Meditation isn't being lost in my own thoughts. That's also not meditation. So obviously there's lack of clarity about what meditation is. I'll put it in different language than I did before. Meditation is deep realization of the original self. Because at the moment I see a mixture, good and not so good. But there is the goodness which is the original goodness within the self. And in meditation, I'm cleaning out the dust that's accumulated through my journey, and I'm coming back to the connection with my original self and the awareness of that original self, so that more and more that begins to shine.
And you said sitting meditation. It doesn't have to be in a sitting position, right? It should be.
Probably when I learn to meditate, I need to sit. I need to create a space which is my space. And probably that physical exercise is going to help me focus and concentrate. And once I've developed the skill of focusing my mind on the inner being, then I carry that with me. Walking, in the car, in the bus, in the train, anywhere. But I think to learn, you first need to actually sit and practice. And then it becomes more and more natural and easy.
From the beginning, you talked about aging society, and Thailand is approaching. I think I just read news that Thailand is becoming the first nation to enter aging society before being so-called a rich nation. So we're having a large percentage of elderly who and why we're still somewhat not developed as a nation, materialistically. So the spirit of care is very essential for caring elderly household.
Yes, definitely. In a society in Asia, there's usually a lot of respect for elder folk. In the West, once you're over a certain age, they even have this term ageism, like racism, and there's discrimination against race. They even have this term ageism, which means that once you're over 50, you can't get a job. If you've lost your job for whatever reason, it's very difficult to find a job. And now in England they say if you've earned your first million by the time you're 30, you're on your way. If you're 40 and you haven't earned a million, you're gone. You're not going to make it. So the standards have changed. But in Asia still I find that there's respect for the elderly, because people recognize that there's a lot of experience they've accumulated that life has given them. And it's a fact. 20 years old, how much do I know? There's a lot of theory, but not enough experience of life. 40, a little bit more experience. 60, and more experience. 80, and it's a huge amount of experience. So respect for the elderly is a very important factor. And of course nowadays, maybe there's so many things like Alzheimer's and dementia. I don't know whether that's a factor in Thailand, but it is in the West. And so they're not able to share their wisdom in the way that they used to. But all the more reason why I should treat them with love and respect, because that's going to keep them alive. If people around them don't care about them, they lose hope, and their mechanism slows down, and it's like they're almost wanting to die and go. But life is sacred. It's important to help them continue to whatever age is their natural age. And so love and respect are the two key factors to be able to care for those who are elderly.
What about people who have severe chronic diseases or terminally ill?
I see the same thing, that if somebody's got a chronic illness, medication they need, but it's irreversible, and so they need a lot of support. They need a lot of care, a lot of love, and the terminally ill. I noticed one other thing. If a person who's terminally ill has created good friends through their life, then at that moment there'll be a lot of help available for them. And if through their life they've ignored people, they've just focused on their own selfish things, then there's not so much help available at that time. So something for me to remember as I age. Investing in people is a very important factor. Let me give to people through my life's journey, and when I'm ill, there'll be much help available, more help than is actually required. I'm speaking about two people who I know. One was a young woman who was a teacher, and she developed multiple sclerosis. And she was a meditator, so she was close to me. And what I found was that so many of the other meditators loved her so much because she'd been a warm, friendly person. We had more carers for her offering help than was necessary. And yet there can be another person, and they haven't bothered with people. And so at a time when they need help, it's difficult. They haven't invested, so the return isn't there. So for me to learn from that, what am I doing now? Am I giving to people my love, my time, my care, my attention? And I know that it will be there for me. And if I'm in a position where someone else is terminally ill, let me be present to remind them that in this last part of their journey, they can think about the sacred self. Again, in a place like Thailand, it's easy to talk about rebirth. Karma, rebirth is part of the culture. England it's not, but here it is. And at that time, remind them that the soul now has to prepare for another chapter. Life isn't ending. Life is going to continue. But it's time for preparation. And the preparation now at this moment means making peace. Making peace with myself and whatever it is I have done. Making peace with my family so that I reach out to them and am able to say whatever it is I need to say to them. Reaching out to friends so that I'm able to close the chapter gracefully. Otherwise, I'm carrying with me memories that are not very pleasant, and it's going to be a struggle for the soul. But to be at peace with myself, whatever it is I did do, I didn't do, that I should have done, and all my relationships, to settle all of that.
Seems like a whole lot of inner work.
There's nothing external you can do at that time. It is certainly inner work.
And there seems to be a lot of questions about the other end of the spectrum in terms of age. A lot of questions about children.
It's a young audience.
How much exposure or do you with millennials? Generation Y.
How much exposure do I have?
Yes.
We have a children's class, and I love meeting the children whenever I can. When I'm in London every Sunday, I join the big class for a short time, because we call it a class, a time to study together, a time to meditate together. So we have daily classes. And so some days the children join us in the big class for a short while, and at that moment it's a good connection, a good feeling. But yes, there's a lot of exposure to young people, children and young people. Especially with young people, what I find is that if they trust you, they're going to come to you and share what it is they're going through. They're probably more willing to share with you than they are with their parents because they feel comfortable.
Do you agree with a lot of the criticisms in papers, articles, magazine about the current generation, the digital generation born with cell phone, tablets? They're more self-involved and not very open and disregard for the tradition.
I'm lucky because my exposure is to young people who are also interested in spirituality. And so I find that the digital generation is very creative. They're able to do things with graphic design, with a creativity that I couldn't. Even today I couldn't, at their age I didn't. So they have a whole new set of skills that my generation didn't even know about. There's one young man who decided in October-November last year that when Sr.Jayanti reached 100 years, he would want to have on her Facebook, she doesn't operate a Facebook, others do, but he wanted to have at least 1 million hits on Facebook when she came to London for the celebration of 100 years. And guess what? We had a hit of 1,400,000 plus hits during the month of January. The creativity of young people is fantastic. And so yes, there's a lot going. And they're far more clever than my generation was. They're more aware of what's going on in the world. So I see that there's a lot of positive energy in young people. And then what it is that hits the press is the negative stuff. You know, they say that if there's good news, it's no news. If there's bad news, that hits the headlines. So anyway, that's what the world is about. But also I see that it's really not their fault, because it's the influences they've been exposed to in such a big way. So I think that we should have a lot of compassion for young people today. They have a very hard world into which they've come. When I meet young people who are connected with the environment, activists for the environment, they're not scared to say, what is the legacy you're leaving us with? And so I think the older generation has a lot to answer for.
Seems like a very steep learning curve for our generation to learn how to work or learn or play with them.
I think if I remember I'm a soul, then I don't feel old. Then I feel very connected with them.
Because I have part of my experience is from education system, university setting, and I would say most of my colleagues, faculty members, teachers, suffer a whole lot with the current students, current generation. They speak from different wavelengths, and what would be your advice to those teachers?
I would say, you're going to get tired of this statement, learn to meditate. Why? Because I said it earlier that education is a very, very stressful system. In England, there are teachers who every Friday evening go to the pub and they get drunk. Why? they want to forget their world. They tell me this. And then Monday comes and they're dreading the thought of coming back to school or wherever. And so I'd say, and there are, in fact, somehow in London we seem to have a lot of teachers and a lot of people from medical healthcare background because they're very stressed. And teachers, as they begin to de-stress and learn to look at their students differently. One teacher who's a meditator, she tells me how she prepares herself each morning by visualizing the classroom and sending rays of light to the classroom. She then walks into the classroom and she holds her dignity and she gives a big smile in silence to everyone. And now the students have understood that this is what she's going to do. And they respond back with silence and a smile. It didn't happen instantly, but she held her silence and her dignity, and they gradually tuned into that. And so the quality of interaction is now very different. And so if I'm living by my inner values, then I bring those values with me into the classroom. We actually have a project which started with the Brahma Kumaris, but now it's open and all the material is available for anyone. It's called Living Values, and educators find it extremely valuable.
I guess this is still in English, right?
Maybe it's been translated into Thai. Yes, it has, because it's been around since 1996, so it's not a new thing. There are constantly new things being added, but it started then.
It sounds like something that we can do not only in a classroom setting, but can be at home and at our workplaces as well.
Absolutely. We have living values for the classroom, living values for families, living values for children at risk, refugees, war zones, disaster areas, but also it's been taken, and I don't know whether this material has been translated so widely, but it's called Values in Healthcare, a Spiritual Approach, and so very specifically for healthcare.
What are the common denominators of all these things? Is that love and respect?
We discovered that we did an exercise, 2 exercises. One was to ask people, this was from 1988 to 91. We had a worldwide project that reached 129 countries, which at that time was every country with a population of over 1 million. The map has changed in that time, but so it was really worldwide, and it happened here in Thailand in a big way. People sent in their visions of a better world, not a bigger house or 2 refrigerators or 1 whatever, but it was all value-based. We didn't know what to expect when we asked the question, but it came back. 12 different values were the essential things that people wanted. And that was places where we have centres in many countries where we didn't have centres at that time. Our next project was to ask people in 66 countries, which is where we had our centres at that point, how would you rate these values? And the first 9 from all across the world were the same: the love, the respect, the honesty, the responsibility, sincerity, things like this. And the first 9 were universal, the same. Then the last 3 were different in different places, so then we just took the majority. And out of that came then the living values. And so, yes, these are qualities that are universal. Why? Because the original state of the soul, everywhere, humanity, are those 5 qualities that I spoke of earlier. And think about colors. You have 4 primary colors, then you mix this one and this one, you get yellow and blue, and you get green, or you get turquoise, or whatever shade you want. Mix another or 2 together, and get a big variety of colors. The combination of these qualities of the soul create 100 values. And so whatever are the values that are important in life, they come from a combination of these original qualities of the self.
I'm a little bit reluctant to ask this question, but since you place such an emphasis on meditation, and as I mentioned before, that meditation has developed such a bad rep in here. What do we do wrong here in Thailand? That people don't. I think a lot of people have gone to some retreats, but they don't seem to get something out of it, and kind of stuck or not sure that they are doing it correctly.
It's not just in Thailand, it's worldwide. That's a fact. People are suspicious of meditation. They associate meditation with cults sometimes, so that causes a bit of reaction and resistance and even fear. But meditation is actually something that people used to do in a very natural way, say 50, 60 years ago. You would begin the day with a quiet time, reflection, whether it was a cup of tea or whether it was just water, but you would have that time for reflection. And the pace of life meant that even say, for example, walking from one classroom to another classroom, it would give you a chance to process. Or in a medical environment, a doctor would have time to listen to the patient. Today, very different. And so the people walking from one room to another room, they're already looking at their mobile, and there's no time to process. And so I'm busy, but I'm putting in more stuff and making myself more busy. And so I'm not ready for my next thing because I haven't processed what's happened. And so that time for reflection, that process has gone. Today in London, every general practitioner is allowed 7 minutes for a patient. Crazy. In 7 minutes, you have to listen, you have to answer, you have to diagnose, you have to write the prescription, and you have to input into the computer. In 7 minutes, it's humanly not possible to find compassion and love, but that's the state of the world. And maybe the population of London is too big. That's why the doctors are treated like machines, and they treat their patients like machines. So that speed of life, that we thought all these devices were going to make life easier. But I can tell you my life was much easier before computers. Much, much easier. More communication, sure, and so that must be good, but it was definitely easier. So why we need to set a time for meditation, whether I go somewhere or I don't, just for my own sanity, to be able to survive in today's crazy world, I need to meditate. Make time for myself. Don't even call it meditation. Just say it's my downtime. Somebody asked me, do you have any downtime? And I said, my meditation time is my downtime. So I need to make time to talk to myself. There's a very interesting definition I heard the other day, because we were talking about the inner dialogue and time for the self. and somebody said to me, but if I'm talking to myself, people tell me I'm crazy. And we then had a conversation. What came out clearly was that if I'm talking to myself and I don't realize it, I think I'm talking to somebody else. That's crazy. But if I'm talking to myself and I'm aware that I'm talking to myself, that is sanity. That's not crazy. So you could put a different label on it, that I need time for myself.
I think along with this question asks about the way to help people with addiction. It's like kids addicted to games, online games, cigarette, or us addicted to our cell phone and reading messages and news. What about it?
With children under 11, it's a little bit easier. But I know that people who are very aware restrict their children's screen time. They will tell the child, and some schools actually have tablets and computers for children to work with, so whatever happens at school, fine. But they'll say, no more screen time at home, weekends, half an hour every day. And if you instill that habit in children, and children are open to discipline, if you explain, they'll listen. If you just give them an order, they'll react and rebel. But if you sit down quietly, give them quality time and explain, they will understand and they will listen. For myself, I need to realize that it's very damaging for me. And what's happening inside here, just to have that addiction, first thing, my mobile, last thing at night, again, my cell phone. And when I realize this for myself, I'll change my pattern.
Where do you find the strength or energy or something to get rid of that habit and start a new pattern?
Gatherings such as this, when these things are discussed openly, and we listen to something like this and we say, I need to have some space in here. How am I going to find that space? My day is busy. And so my space is going to be first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And if I'm going to be occupied with my Facebook, I don't have that time for myself. So hearing something is going to start triggering your mind, and you're going to start thinking, well, let me try it and see if it makes me feel better. And within a week, guarantee you'll feel much better.
So we should become more of a experimenter and learn from our direct experience.
I think so, because when somebody's telling you, this is very nice, they'll then say, taste it and try it. So I'm sharing what I've learned, and it's very nice, but you have to taste it and try it for yourself.
What about children addicted to games?
Limit their screen time. You have to put down a discipline somewhere. Sometimes children don't realize that discipline is good for them. And when parents say, you don't understand this now maybe, but really this is for your benefit, and they impose that discipline, they even take away the tablet, and the child will learn.
Does it go along well with together restriction, discipline, and spirit of care?
It's part of that. Think about a potter. A potter shaping a beautiful piece of pottery. On the one side, the wheel is spinning, and he's supporting the clay. And on the other side, it's a gentle tap. It's both together. And so spirit of care is, in a very detached way, not an emotional way, but to have the interests of the child at heart. So I'm supporting all the time, but I'm also shaping, so that the discipline is in the shaping. Otherwise, just let the clay sit there and just support it. It's not going to have any form. It's not going to be something beautiful. And so with that vision of the future, I have to do both. Not harsh discipline that causes anger or bitterness, but a lot of love and a lot of explanation.
And I think it always come back to starting with self, because if you wanna have a quality time with children, you can't really do in a busy life, a busy mind.
There are three things that always get mixed up. One is the time I need for myself, the other is relationships, and the third is the task, whatever the task is. If I get these in the right order, time for myself, then I have the capacity to have meaningful relationships, and I'm making time for meaningful relationships. Then, both at home but also at work, then when it comes to the task, everybody supports, everybody cooperates, and the task gets done. And the upside down state of the world is that you're saying the task has to be got done. The task is the important thing. But it's only going to get done well if I have the other two in place first.
How can one explain this to their supervisor, boss? Oh, I have to make time for myself first.
Show your efficiency at work, and your supervisor will ask you, what happened? Are you drinking a new type of brew now? What's made you super efficient? And the way you've become super efficient is because you've learned to discipline your mind. So the proof of your meditation is the quality of your output. And that's what he'll notice, or she will notice.
I like to move way back to at the beginning when you talk about the care for the environment, for the earth, for other life forms. It's very depressing news we've heard. For some, probably a lot. It seems like the way to counterbalance is through sort of use of force or protest, demonstration. Do you think that's effective?
No. I haven't seen protests about the environment bring change in any law. What is effective, if I decide, you see, I believe deeply that everything starts with the self. So if I decide to simplify my lifestyle, if I decide to reduce my carbon footprint, if I decide to shop in a different way, if I decide to change my diet to a plant-based diet, this has a huge impact, not only on the environment, but on all my friends. They notice these things, and they're going to ask me questions, and I'm going to be able to spread this awareness and bring about change. Change can happen very fast. Think about non-smoking. In England, when they brought in the non-smoking laws, people thought it's going to take a long time for people to adjust. Within a year, it had become completely acceptable. Within a year. And so when people on the grassroots bring change, that has huge impact. But also when the leadership of a country understands these things and they realize that it's really a question of now or never. Within some time, whatever we've done is going to have such repercussions that it would be irreversible. But what we can do now is simplify and the things that I talk about. But also, the other side is we're very much approaching the whole subject from a level of consciousness. Materials, and I want to accumulate more and more and more, and the earth cannot support that anymore. Spiritual consciousness, and not only do I simplify, but I make sure that I now treat the earth with respect. And that changes the quality of my relationship with nature. The third thing, renewable energies. If we focus more and more on those, I think that that's a very positive transition. Brahma Kumaris in India is the single largest organizational user of renewable energies, both wind as well as solar, and we are about to complete the construction of India 1, which is the first solar thermal power station for our organization. So action is also important, but these are some of the very positive things that we can do.
I can see the tobacco laws. With tobacco laws, people have easier time to make connection, their health and the law. But for environmental impact, there's many links between here and there. Do you think that the consciousness is sort of the shortcut so that people become connected to the environment that way?
I believe that consciousness raising is the most powerful thing we can do. So education is always better than a law. And so I think that each one of us can have an impact on many, many others. Think about how many people you know, not just for your friends, but the people you know. Start making a list. Your family, your friends, the professionals you're in contact with, the doctor, the dentist, the teacher, the architect, etc., extend it to all the people you know, people you meet once a year, once every 2 years. Everyone is connected to a minimum of 100 people, I would say, minimum. And some are connected to 500 or 1,000, maybe more. And so I can impact all of them in some way or another.
People, there's a saying that the best way to teach others is by the way you live.
We use an expression, values are caught, not taught. So you catch values from each other. And especially children at home, whatever the values that are practiced, that's the influence.
That's my very positive perception of Brahma Kumaris in Thailand. So.
Good.
Very impressed.
Thank you.
Actually, we have the short video that the Brahma Kumaris is about the environment. Would you like us to show that now? About the shape, the consciousness.
What I'd like us to do is to have 5 minutes of meditation.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah? And then maybe while we're distributing Toli, then the film can be screened. Yeah? Your questions have been very deep and meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's just a joyous experience. It's more than intellectual and personal. It's very spiritual for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You've been hearing a lot about meditation. And it's very simple. Just sit comfortably, and the best way is both feet on the ground. And if you're holding something, put it down so that you can be free. I'll speak out my own thoughts in meditation and invite you to follow these ideas. No music. I reflect on the things I've been hearing about. And I go on a journey inwards. Many ideas, many thoughts. But now I watch my thoughts. As I watch my thoughts, the speed slows down. I can see the quality of my thinking. I can choose the quality I wish. I can choose the thoughts I would like to have. I choose the thought of peace. I hold peace in my mind. And as I hold peace, I can feel myself becoming peaceful. It feels comfortable. It feels familiar. It feels natural. I realize I am peace. And in this awareness of peace, it is as if I'm able to open a door. The door to all the treasures that I've forgotten about that lie within me. I turn my attention to the center of the forehead. And feel the light that's shining. This is who I am. A being of light, a being of peace. Not only am I peace, I'm also a being of love. Love is my original state. I have to return to it again and again. peace, love, and truth are my original state of being. All these are the treasures that I carry within myself. I stay connected to these treasures and I bring them back with me as I come back to the physical dimension and the moment here and now. But I know I can connect with these at any moment, again and again.